Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hello there. Once again, my name is Derek Akotubwayan, and you are welcome back to Share Early Foundations online course on web design and blogging. Alright, so in the previous video, we talked about web design, what web design is, what web development is. I talked to you about blogging, and I showed you what to expect in this course, and at the latter end, I showed you some of the importance, and I even went ahead to show you the amount of money I've been able to make from blogging alone, and I talked to you about the cash I've been making from web design and web development. So in today's video, we are going to have a general overview of how to build a website. So I'm going to start with explaining to you what a website is. We're going to be talking about domain name, hosting, what they are, and yeah, so we're going to be sticking around the general overview for today. I think tomorrow we are going to begin serious tutorials. Okay, so before we dive in deeper, you have to know a lot of things. So that's why I'm taking my time to give you the theory, so that you have something to base your knowledge on, something you understand about what you're doing. Right, so that is what we're gonna do. So watch out. Wait. Did you watch the previous video? If you didn't watch the previous video, make sure you watch the previous video before you watch the next, okay? So now, what is a website? Yes, you. What is a website? You don't know? Leave my class. Alright, so I was just joking. Now, when we talk about a website, we say that a website is a set of related web pages that is under a domain name and is hosted on a server. Okay, so we are looking at web pages put together that have a single domain name, and then they are hosted on a hosting server. So then, what is a domain name and what is a hosting server? Okay, so a domain name, okay, is the address of a website. Okay, so and then the hosting server is where the website's files and documents and everything that basically concerns the site is kept. Okay, so let's take it as domain name is the address to a particular house, and then that particular house that contains all the items in the house is the hosting server. Okay, so when we are looking at the website, we are looking at two things. We are looking at one, domain name; two, we are looking at a hosting server. And what we are saying is that the domain name is the address of that server. Okay, the address that points to the server. Okay, and the server is the one that hosts all the items or the files and the folders, basically the software of the website. So that is basically what a website is, with a domain name and then a hosting. So just take it in terms of like going to rent a house. Every house has an address. Okay, the house has a name, and basically the name is the address of that house, and that house basically has some things that it has kept inside of it. Okay, so the things we keep inside of a website, we keep it on a hosting server. Okay, so yeah, that is basically the understanding of domain name and hosting for a website. So when we say domain name, we are talking about basically the name of the website. Okay, in addition to its extension. So the name of the website, for example, Google. Okay, so Google is the name of google.com. Okay, so I'm saying that the domain name comes with an extension, and the extension is .com. So if we look at Google, the domain name is google.com, but the name of the site is Google. So you see that the domain name comes with the extension for the name of that particular website, and google.com is hosted on a server. So that is basically what makes up a website. So one, I said a website is a set of related web pages that are under a particular domain name, and they are hosted on a hosting server. right? So that is basically that. So I took google.com for example, and I'm saying that the name of google.com is Google. Okay, so the name of that website is Google, but the domain name is google.com. That is so the extension is .com, and it's hosted on a hosting server. So now I'm going to talk about the extensions, the various extensions of domain names. So for domain names, we have .com extension, we have .net extension, we have .school extension, we have .blog extension, we have .co extension, .org. There are lots of them. .me, .xyz. There are lots of domain extensions right now. So now let's look at the various domain extensions and their uses. And so .com extensions are from how they came about, they were supposed to be used for commercial purposes. So .com simply means .commercial, okay, but over the years it looks as if they've evolved, and it doesn't really matter with the extension that you give to a domain name. Sometimes it really matters, but nowadays it doesn't really matter. When you have a website and give it a .com extension, I mean, it quite fits all heads, but sometimes you just want to restrict yourself. For example, you are setting up an organizational website. So let's say ShareEli.org. Okay, so ShareEli is an organizational. ShareEli's website is an organizational website. So if we are going to give a domain name to ShareEli's website, then of course it has to have a domain name that has an extension of .org, because it is an organization. Do you get it? Yeah. So domain name extensions have the roles they play, even though over the years they have evolved, and nowadays you can basically use any extension for any domain name. But sometimes it's very necessary to, for the brand's sake, it's very necessary to restrict yourself to certain domain names because of the type or the kind of website you are building. So sometimes you will see certain websites and they have .edu, .gh or something like that, .edu or .edu. It means that particular website is an educational website. So you see, domain names are very necessary, and you have to restrict yourself to certain domain name extensions, especially when you are dealing with certain brands, okay, and you don't want to mess up things. So now, what websites can have the .com extension? Okay, basically any website can have .com extension, but you want to restrict yourself to the .com extension, especially when you have a commercial website. Okay, a commercial website like a blogging site or an e-commerce site. Yeah, you basically want to restrict yourself to .com extensions. When do we use .org domain name extensions? We use .org domain name extensions when we are building organizational website. When do we use .edu? We use .edu when we are building educational website. When do we use .gov.gov? We use that when we are building governmental websites. When do we use .net? So the .net is quite generic, yeah, but just as I said, sometimes you want to restrict yourself to the website brand and give it the proper or the appropriate domain name extension. So yeah, we've been talking about domain name extensions, and I said we have the .com extension, .org, .edu, .gov, .net, .me, .school, .blog. There are a whole lot of them on the internet right now, and if you should walk into any domain name registrar or any domain company on the internet right now, you're going to find a lot of them. For example, Namecheap.com. Okay, so if I go to Namecheap.com right now, so www.namecheap.com. Okay, so if we go to www.namecheap.com, all right, so here I'm going to input a certain name, let's say my name, okay, and then we're going to see all the domain name extensions that they are going to pull up on that particular platform. So let's go there. So I go to www.namecheap.com, And yes, so here I'm gonna type Derek. So let's just say I want to use the .com extension to my domain name. So I just say Derrick, DERRICK.com and enter. Okay, so it's loading. Let's just wait. Alright, so there it is. Okay, so now we have, you can see Derrick.com. If we scroll down, you can see a lot of domain name extensions right here. So all these that I'm scrolling through are all domain name extensions that I can use if, for example, I want to use the name Derrick for a website. Okay, so yeah, so now Namecheap is a domain registrar. Okay, so it's a domain registrant company on the internet, but there are a lot of them on the internet right now. So we have Namecheap. There are a lot of them on the internet, and I think in Ghana, I think I came across one domain registrar. I think I've forgotten their name. Is it Naprotech or what? Yeah, something like that. So we have a lot of domain name registrars on the internet, and anytime you go to a domain name company on the internet and you want to purchase a domain, you'll be welcomed, and they will show you the price of that particular domain name with its extension. So one thing you have to know is that the extensions come with their various prices. So mostly .net and .com extensions are very expensive as compared to the others. It depends, okay, but mostly .net and .com and .org extensions are, they are more popular, so they are more expensive than the other extensions. Take for example a domain name extension like .xyz. Okay, .xyz domain name extensions mostly cost $1, and that is approximately 6 cedis. Okay, so it depends on your brand, but mostly the .com, the .net and the .org extensions are very expensive because they are the most popular on the internet right now. Alright, so ending with this, we are saying that the domain name of a website, okay, is the address of that particular site. Alright, so it's the address of the site, and the address has an extension to the name. So I use google.com for example, and I said the name is Google and the extension is .com, so the domain name is google.com. So yeah, that is all that comprises of domain names. We'll be talking a lot about them in this web design tutorial, but for now what you should just know is that domain name for a website is the address of that website, the address that points to the hosting server, right? Yeah, so now let's talk about the hosting. Do you remember when I said hosting is like, take it as a house or a residential place? Just take it as a house wherein we keep our things, our items. Okay, so for websites, the hosting server is like its house where it stores its files and documents and basically everything you would require for a website to do for you. It has to communicate with the hosting server before it can be able to pull up that request for you. So that is hosting server for you. And in order for you to get hosting for your website, you basically have to purchase one. And yes, let me chip in this. If you are going to purchase domain names have I think a minimum of 1 year. So if you are purchasing domain name like for example Derrick.com, that domain name is going to have a minimum expiry date of 1 year. So after 1 year it's going to expire. That is the minimum that they give for domain names. But for hosting, there are a lot of hosting companies on the internet right now. Namecheap.com, that's hosting. HostGator, that's hosting. Hostinger, that's hosting. GoDaddy, that's hosting. And what I use is Cloudways.com. They also do cloud hosting. Okay, so there are a lot of hosting companies on the internet, and if you should go to Namecheap.com, yeah, they have hosting plans and you can choose from each of them and make a purchase. But don't worry, this is just a general overview. So when we start the tutorials, I'm going to take you to a particular hosting company. We are going to make a purchase of a domain name. We are going to make a purchase of a hosting server so that you know how the thing goes. Okay, yeah. So now, just as we talked about the types or the extensions of domain names as being .com, .net, .org, .school, .blog, mention them. Yeah. Now let's talk about the types of hosting. So to start with, we have shared hosting, and what shared hosting is that shared hosting. Okay, so on a shared hosting server, okay, it's only one server that has a lot of websites hosted on it. So if you go to a hosting company to buy a shared hosting, it simply means that they are going to host your website on a server that already has a lot of websites on it. So it's just one server. Okay, one server. Take it just like a box. It's just one server that has a lot of websites sticking on it. Okay, on it. Yeah. So it's just like living in a compound house where there are a lot of individuals in a house. Okay, so it's just one house, but there are a lot of individuals in that same house. So if you are a tenant in somebody's house and there are lots of neighbors around who are living with you in the same house, like a compound house, yeah, you are doing sharing of that particular house. So that is the idea behind shared hosting. So if you are hosting a website on a shared host server, it simply means that the server has a lot of sites and you're hosting yours on it. So there are some disadvantages of that particular hosting type, because sometimes, you know, shared hosting is good for starter sites, for beginner sites that do not have a lot of storage capacity. They do not require a lot of storage capacity. Okay, sites that do not make a lot of user requests per second or something like that. So if you have a new website, of course it's not going to be needing a large storage capacity, and it's not going to be making a lot of requests, because by that time you might not have a lot of users on that particular website. So for starter sites and for beginner websites, it's good to buy shared hosting for them. But for websites that are big enough, for example Jumia, okay, Jumia is a big website. You can't host Jumia on a shared hosting platform, because for shared hosting servers, the storage capacity that they give to the storage capacity and the bandwidth they give to the website they host is very small for a big website like Jumia. You get it? So yeah, that's an example for you so that you know how it goes. Now there's another form of hosting we call dedicated hosts. Okay, so for dedicated server or for dedicated hosting, you're going to have one server and you're going to host your website on that particular server. So it's like you, an individual, going to rent an apartment for yourself. So nobody is living in that particular apartment with you. It's only you and that apartment. No one else is on it. That is the reason why it's called dedicated host. Okay, so for dedicated host servers, they have only one website on them. It's dedicated to that particular website. All right, so that one has a lot of advantages as compared to shared hosting, because for shared hosting, your website is sharing storage capacity and bandwidth with other websites on that particular same server. But for dedicated host, your website only has that server, and it enjoys all the storage capacity and all the bandwidth that comes along with that particular server, right? So the last of the hosting servers I'll talk about, there are lots of them. We have VPS hosting and blah 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 blah. I'll talk about the last one. The last one is cloud hosting. Okay, so for cloud hosting is almost like a dedicated hosting server. Okay, but for cloud hosting, you can host a lot of websites on there like shared hosting, but for cloud hosting, it's mostly faster. Okay, cloud hosting servers are faster than physical hosting servers like shared hosting and dedicated hosting. You can do dedicated hosting on cloud platforms. You can do shared hosting on cloud platforms. But cloud hosting in itself is much faster, much better than hosting that is not done in the cloud. Okay, yeah. So that is basic. Yeah, that is, I think that is all about servers. So we have shared hosting, dedicated hosting, and then we have cloud hosting. All right, yeah.
Audio Jungle.
All right, so now what are the different types of websites? Okay, so to begin with, we have educational websites, and a big example of educational websites is Khan Academy. So if you go to khanacademy.org, it's an educational site where they offer programs like computer programming and a lot of courses on there. So Khan Academy is a big example of educational website. Then we have business websites. As for business websites, they are specific for businesses. Okay, so for example, if Fidelity Bank, Ghana Commercial Bank has a website, it's more of a business or an organizational website. You get it? Yeah, so business websites are specific for the kind of businesses that individuals do. Okay, so they are set up for that purpose. It can be about travel and tour, it can be about architecture, it can be about whatever that company or that business is doing. Okay, so those are business websites. And then we have social media websites. So we know a lot. We know Facebook, we know Instagram, we know YouTube, we know Twitter, we know a lot. So those are the kind of sites that have user interactions enhanced to increase social activity. So those are social media websites. And then we have government websites. Okay, now government websites are set up for such purposes, for governmental organizations like the Ghana Health, the Ghana Health company or something, the Ghana Water Company, blah blah blah. So governmental websites are set up for governmental purposes. Okay, yeah. So that is also that. So we have e-commerce websites, and e-commerce websites are basically set up for buying and selling purposes. All right, so yeah, it's, for example, Jumia, Kiku, yeah. So they have websites that they do buying and then selling. So those are e-commerce websites, electronic commerce websites. Another type of sites that we have is organizational websites. So if you look at ShareEli, ShareEli Foundation has ShareEli.org, and that is the website for ShareEli. So organizational websites are set up for organizations. Example, ShareEli, right? So, yeah, that is that. And then we have blogs. Now blogs, just as I said in the previous video, blogs are websites that contain information for public consumption. So blogs are basically set up for such reasons. So in the previous video I talked about myjoyonline.com. We have edstudios.net. There are a lot. We have ghanaweb.com. There are a lot of them on the internet. So those are also blogs, informational websites containing information about news articles, a lot, sports, travel, food, blah blah blah. Yeah, so those are some types of websites I can talk about to you. Alright, so now let's talk about how websites are created. Okay, now websites are created, one, by hard coding, by writing a code in programming languages. So for websites in particular, we have 5 programming languages. 5 or 4 programming languages that we write websites in, and we have them as HTML, we have CSS, we have JavaScript, and then we have PHP or Python. So basically websites are written with 4 or 5 languages. Some of them, they have their back end written in Python or in PHP. So yeah, so basically you need just 4 programming languages to be able to write a website by hard coding. But then there is another thing that does not involve coding, and those systems, I mentioned them earlier on. I said they are content management systems, and what they do is that they offer templates. Okay, so example of content management systems, we have Joomla, we have Shopify, we have PrestaShop, and then we have WordPress. Okay, now WordPress is the most popular amongst all of them. WordPress is the most popular amongst all the content management systems, or all the CMSs right now, because WordPress is used by a lot of people for creating diverse kinds of websites. So it's either you hard code a website from scratch using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, or Python, or you use content management platforms like WordPress for creating such sites. So for the purpose of this tutorial, we are going to be using a content management system called WordPress for creating websites. And in the previous video, I told you that by the end of this course, you should get started with coding if you are interested in it. So for this tutorial in particular, we are going to be using a content management system for creating websites. Alright, so soon enough we have come to the end of today's session. Now in the next videos, we're going to be looking at how to purchase a domain, how to purchase hosting, and then we start real work. Okay, so at the end of this week's sessions, I'm going to give you a project, okay, so that you'll be able to create your first website. So from the things that I'll be teaching you in this week. Okay, so tomorrow we are going to go to a domain registrar on the internet and buy a domain, buy hosting, host a website. I'm going to teach you how to do all those, how to connect the domain name to the hosting, set up the website, how to beautifully design the site. I'm going to show you all starting in the next videos. Okay, so guys, thank you for sticking around today. See you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.